Welcome to the Back to Life podcast, where we explore living well, loving well, and being well. I'm your host, Nicole, and I invite you to tune in for inspirational conversations to get you back to life. Let's get started. Welcome to the Back to Life podcast, where we talk about living well, loving well, and being well. I'm your host, Nicole, and we are back with episode 2 of our REFOCUS series for season 3. Last time, we talked about the importance of pausing to understand where you've been. And today, we're going to explore the second part of this series, which is ponder. Where are you going? And is it where you want to go? And more importantly, what's really driving your direction? Let's explore how to reflect on where we're going and look for a path forward that aligns with the things that matter most to us, our values and our priorities. Sounds like a deal? All right. So, you know that feeling when you check your phone to look up something important and then 30 minutes later you're watching videos of pandas rolling down the hill? Well, or maybe that's just me. You had a clear intention and a destination in mind, but somehow you ended up somewhere completely different. You see, I found myself there just last week. I was sitting down to work on the podcast, and about 3 hours later, I had completely reorganized my entire digital photo collection, answered every non-urgent email in my inbox, and went down the rabbit hole of the complete history of wind chimes. True story. I'm so distracted. This is bad. But the thing is, sometimes these detours aren't just about poor time management or a lack of focus. They're often signals from our emotional GPS, and they're telling us something important about where we really are. So before we unpack that, let's do a quick emotional check-in. And I call this the weather report. So I want you to close your eyes if you're somewhere safe to do so, not while you're driving, please. What is the weather like in your internal world right now? Just sit there and think. Are you experiencing sunny skies of motivation? Or is it cloudy with a chance of anxiety? Maybe there's a storm of overwhelm brewing. Just take a moment to notice without trying to change anything. You see, our emotions aren't just passengers on this journey. They're more like the weather conditions that we're traveling through. I mean, they can influence every decision, every turn, and every delay that we experience. So this episode is about the power of pondering, right? Where we're going. So pondering is all about intentional reflection. It's asking yourself meaningful questions and taking the time to think deeply about where you're trying to go. Without pondering, we might end up living on autopilot, staying stuck in routines that don't serve us, or even chasing waterfalls. Little shout out to TLC and my Gen X friends. So take a moment to think about where you're going. Like, what's your current path? Are you excited about it? Or do you feel like you're just going through the motions? If you're feeling stuck, unsure, or even overwhelmed, guess what? You're not alone. These feelings are often signs that it's time to ponder where you're going and to reevaluate some things. So before we can chart a new course, we need to identify what might be holding us back. So let's explore some common barriers. One is the fear of change. Are you afraid of stepping out of your comfort zone? I know a lot of people are, and change can be scary, but it's also necessary for growth, because if nothing changes, nothing changes. Number 2, unclear priorities. Maybe you're just juggling too many things all at once and don't know what to focus on. This is where having, a compass or a GPS to help us with direction kind of comes in handy. And that tends to focus around our values. Number 3, external expectations. Are you chasing goals that others have set for you instead of what truly matters to you? And then number 4, past failures. Or is that number 5? No, number 4. Sorry. Past failures. Do old mistakes or setbacks make you hesitant to try again? As I read these common barriers, think about which ones resonate with you. What's been keeping you from moving forward? So let me share something that I've started to notice in my own life. Every time I feel overwhelmed or uncertain, I fall into what I call the productive procrastination trap. I busy myself with tasks that feel important, but they aren't moving me towards the direction that I'm trying to go. It's like my brain says, "But at least you're doing something." Yeah, but it's almost like I'm trying to chase my own tail. I'm going in circles. Sound familiar? These patterns, whether it's productive procrastination, perfectionism, or people pleasing, all of the P's, they're not character flaws. They're coping mechanisms. And they're the ways we've learned to navigate uncomfortable emotions and uncertainty. So, what do you typically do when you don't know what to do? Do you dive into busy work, doom scrolling on social media, or make endless lists without taking any actions, or all of the above? Understanding these patterns is like having a high definition map for where you're trying to go. When we know our emotional triggers and habitual responses, we can plan better routes, and we can recognize when we're taking a detour, and more importantly, understand why. So here's a practical tool that I use. It's called the pattern interrupt. When you notice yourself falling into a familiar distraction pattern, I want you to ponder these 3 questions. What am I feeling right now? What am I avoiding? And what's one small step that could move me in the right direction? Sometimes just this moment of awareness is enough to redirect our course. It's not about perfect navigation. It's about noticing when we've wandered off track and gently steering ourselves back on the path. And I want to encourage you to become a pattern detective. Notice your emotional weather patterns and the behaviors they trigger. Keep a simple note on your phone, like what emotions tend to take you off course. What activities become your favorite distractions? It's very helpful, or it can be. Now that we've identified potential roadblocks, let's shift our focus to what matters most, or our core values. These are like our personal compass. When we learn what matters most to us, it becomes the priority. And those things we hold dearly can directly influence the choices that we make in life. When our choices match what we truly care about, life feels a little bit more meaningful and genuine. And it's like everything just falls into place or clicks into place. All right, let's do something called the values alignment check. Remember that piece of paper that from last episode that I wanted you to do, where we imagined looking into a photo album of our past year? Now, next to each memory you wrote, I want you to write one word that describes the feeling behind that memory. And look at those words once you write them. They're not random. They're your core values speaking. Are the words showing up matching how you're currently living? If not, that's okay. And we're here to explore why. Your values aren't just fancy words you jot down in a journal. They're the foundations for how you move through life. It's how you show up. Think of them as your inner GPS, always there to guide you, but only if you actually pay attention to it. Sure, you might have a general sense of your values. While they may start out as hand-me-downs from your family or on your playlist of life's greatest hits, the real magic happens when you tune into how they show up in your day-to-day life and emotional forecast. And it's not just about knowing them. Have you ever stopped to define what your values really mean to you? Like when your choices, your emotions, and behaviors align with what truly matters to you, things just click and you move with more confidence, and life feels just a little less like a constant uphill battle. But if you wait until you're knee deep in stress to check in with your values, that's like waiting until your gas light comes on and you're in the middle of nowhere to start looking for a gas station. No wonder you feel overwhelmed, frustrated, or stuck. But hey, good news. Those emotional cues that you're getting, they're like your personal value alignment notification system. And you can always recalibrate. Your values aren't set in stone, they grow with you. So take a minute, check in, and make sure that your emotions and your actions are actually leading you forward towards what matters, not away from it. Okay, so to guide your pondering, I want you to start by asking yourself these questions. What are the top 5 things that matter most to you right now? What's a priority for you? And what do you want to feel when you're living according to those 5 things that you listed? Also, how do you want those 5 things to show up in your life? Now, of course, you probably have way more values than that, but condensing them to 5 things helps you to really prioritize those things that matter most to you, and it helps you to focus as well. Because your values aren't meant to sit on a shelf looking pretty. They're meant to be your daily companions. And the more you practice living them, the more natural it becomes. Think of it as building a friendship with your core beliefs rather than treating them like a distant relative you only visit during holidays. Pondering where you're going isn't just a mental exercise. It's a powerful way to align your life with your values and the things you aspire to. And as you reflect on today's episode, I encourage you to take one step forward towards the future that you want to create. And as you ponder where you're going, remember that clarity comes from action or consistent action. You don't need to have everything figured out before you start. Just take one intentional step today and let it guide you towards the next. Maybe that step is having an honest conversation with someone you trust, or researching a new opportunity, or even just journaling about where you want to go in your life. Whatever it is, commit to it because your future self will thank you for it. So in our next episode, we will move to the final step, which is prepare. And that's where we'll take all of these insights, such as your emotional awareness, your behavioral patterns, and your values, and create a practical roadmap for moving forward. It's where we'll learn how to work with our emotions rather than against them. So remember, every GPS recalculates when we take a wrong turn. Your emotional GPS is no different. There's no shame in getting distracted or lost. The important thing is noticing and adjusting your course. Thank you so much for joining me today. If this episode inspired you, share it with a friend who might need some encouragement as they refocus for the new year. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember that clarity comes from reflection and action. This is Refocus. Be well. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories about this series that we're talking about. You can follow us online at our website or on socials, and information about that is in the show notes. Be well.